All right, well, welcome back. We're going to keep going here on day one at AWE 2021. This is our last session of the morning, and then we're going to do a lunch break. So this will be the last you hear me until after lunch. Greg will be handling the Q&A for this group. So let me tell you just a little bit about Greg, and then I'll pass the baton to him. He's the co-vice chair of the New Media Council, Producers Guild of America. Greg is a senior vice president of U.S. operations partner at Hologate, the world's most successful immersive media company for location-based entertainment, also known as LBE, which I love partaking in. 10 million plus players, wow, across 36 countries worldwide. He's also the co-vice chair of the Producers Guild of America, as I just said a second ago, their New Media Council, the second term. And an advisor at NFT Oasis and partner and co-event director of Dreamland XR. All right.
Thank you.
Here you go, Greg.
Thank you. Hey, everyone. For one thing, I'm just so excited to be back at AWE, and thank you all for being here. It just really kind of warms our heart to see everyone in person and to have some of my really favorite friends of all time and the best people that I could think of to talk about this topic. And I know that the metaverse term has been being thrown around a lot. You know, the big news with Facebook changing the name to Meta. There's a lot of, I guess, chatter. There's a lot of noise, and hopefully we can dispel some of the, the misinformation out there, and maybe, talk about what we feel is real. And as in the intro you heard, I'm with a company called Hologate. We're doing LBE, and I wasn't even an LBE guy. I didn't even know what LBE even stood for. But I realized with virtual reality, which there's a parallel with the metaverse, is that because it was so new that we really had to create public awareness. We had to create accessibility, distribution. And if you think about it, it's something that I talk about with VR, is that VR didn't have the equivalent of a television and a movie theater. I mean, we were all born into that. It's been around for 100 years. So when VR came around, I was going, oh my gosh, this stuff is magical, but wait a minute, how do people actually experience it? And people already start to make assumptions. They're saying, oh, it's just like 3D, Greg, all over again. I go, no, it's not. You got to put the headset on. So, I was doing Google Cardboard, even though that, it was a, little box with some plastic lenses and your phone. It was magical enough to get, hopefully, people excited. And then I started to have events to connect people, connect developers with the public to start creating public awareness. But a lot of these steps that I had taken for VR, it's not quite sexy, right? It's a lot of the stuff that people kind of overlook because they want to do the cool stuff. They want to do the content creation. They want to do storytelling. But sometimes we have to break it down, and we have to look at all of the different players that will ultimately make up this movement. And when we do that, then all of us are successful. All of us will start to create opportunities for ourselves, create jobs, help humanity, make money. So there's again, similarities between virtual reality and the metaverse. And before I continue on, I first want to introduce my dear friends, and I'm so grateful that they agreed to be part of this panel. But I'd like to go down the row and first introduce Lisa Watts. She's with Magic Leap. And Lisa, would you like to just tell the group a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, hi. So happy to be back at AWE. I've been at Magic Leap since June of this year. I'm heading up the VP of Product Marketing and Planning. And that also includes our Developer Relations division just recently, which one of my esteemed employees is here today. Shane is over here if you want to chat with him. Prior to that, I had my own company, consultancy, and then was at Intel Corporation for 25 years, where the last 5 or so years there, I headed up the global strategy as far as what we were doing within Immersive. And, I'm 100% on board with what Greg is saying relative, we've got to start first things first foundationally, and I can't wait to talk to you guys about that today.
Thank you. And next on the panel, Amy Peck.
Hi, everyone. So I have a company called Endeavor VR and jumped off into the abyss of consulting about 2015, kind of by myself, just focused on enterprise when everyone was like, oh, this is going to be great for games. And then we kind of realized, oh, wow, this can actually change outcomes. And we're going to talk a little bit about what the impact is for commerce and for enterprise and for business. But that was really, that kind of turning point, I think, in the industry where we started to look at, how do we leverage the technology to improve process. And now with, the hype cycle of the metaverse, I think we need to really look in a much sort of broader way, not just about business, but really how we want to live our lives and how we want to interact with the digital landscape. And it's not just about enterprise, which we are going to talk about today. And it's not just a mirror world. We don't have to just create another digital twin and just do what we're already doing faster and better. I think there's an opportunity for reinvention. So hopefully we'll get to chat about that today.
Thank you, Amy. And last but not least, Will O'Brien.
So this is what a clubhouse room looks like in real life? Is that what we got here?
So yeah, put your phones away.
But not everybody, everyone's not in their pajamas, so it's good. Nice to see you all. I'm Will O'Brien. I'm the CEO and co-founder of NFT Oasis, and we are a metaverse company. We're building a bridge to the metaverse, and we're launching the abundant creator economy. And my background is in a combination of blockchain. Been in Bitcoin blockchain since 2012. I was the CEO and co-founder of a company called BitGo and investor in the space. I also had experience in video games as an executive at Big Fish Games up in Seattle. And I'm also an artist, a musician. I'm a dad. I think this opportunity right now, the metaverse is coming of age because the headsets are finally accessible from a price point, from an experience level. And the energy that's going into the NFT movement can come into the metaverse and can launch something new. Creators can create and build and connect with their destiny and build something of value. And so I'm just really excited and passionate about this moment in time and to veer away from Ready Player One and veer away from the Zuckerverse towards something really beautiful.
Wonderful.
We
Thank
said
you.
it. We said it. Knew it was going to happen eventually.
Thank you, all three of you. And so the one thing I want to talk about is why I'm so excited to put this panel together and talk about the business of the metaverse, because I truly feel it's the fuel that will create public awareness. It's the fuel that will help sustainability, that will be the example to the public that, oh, this is actually working, because we have to have practical experience using these new technologies, working in a spatial environment. So I don't know if you guys know our friend Tony Parisi. So Tony is on Global Head. His title is Global Head AR, VR, Ads, and Commerce for Unity. And just back on October 22nd, he came out with this manifesto, and it is incredible. And we were, Will and I were reading it yesterday, and I remember when he put it out, it was really just to kind of wake up the community and say, hey guys, I've compiled this manifesto so that we can all look at this and really stop and understand what this is. And this is compiled not just from Tony, but it was compiled from a lot of these thought leaders that have been on the forefront of the metaverse for a very long time. And I'm just going to list the 7 rules of the metaverse. They're just 7 sentences, and hopefully you can all do a search for his article, his manifesto, and read the whole thing at length. But number 1, there is only one metaverse. 2, the metaverse is for everyone. 3, nobody controls the metaverse. 4, the metaverse is open. 5, the metaverse is hardware independent. 6, the metaverse is a network. And 7, the metaverse is the internet. And so, yeah, think about those. And we're talking about a very vast world that we're going to be working in. And there's a lot of factors that are going to have to happen for us to ultimately get there into this interconnected, interoperable world. But what's exciting is is all these different companies, and probably a lot of the companies that you own or that you're part of out in the audience right now, that are contributing to the ultimate development of it. And Will and I just mentioned it takes a village, right? It truly takes a village to build this. And you're talking about head-mounted displays, software, hardware, even the ideas like from Snow Crash and Ready Player One, or experience like haptics, or from spatial audio. So all these companies that are working towards or that are developing their own companies and their own businesses, they're all a puzzle piece that hopefully will ultimately lead to the metaverse. With that said, the business of the metaverse, again, it shows that something's working. It's showing that people like my friends next to me are coming up with legitimate ways to help creators or help enterprise, and actually finding revenue from it. And that should be exciting for all of us, because they're saying, we get the concept, we know where it's headed, but we want to start being an active player in it so that we can ultimately influence it, and then where it's going, and how we can help people. So I wanted to start with Will for, and if you can tell me a little bit about NFT Oasis, and maybe a recent project, a recent activation that you've worked on that you feel has sort of solidified the concept. I mean, you're a startup. $4.4 million raise recently, and you did an activation with Tony Robbins. So, for a very short time that you've been in existence, you've made quite some leaps and bounds. So if you can maybe describe a little bit more about the company and some of the activations that you feel are pretty notable.
Sure, thanks, Greg. So I started the company in March, and I was observing the market, the NFT market, the Clubhouse phenomenon. When COVID hit, I moved my family out of San Francisco in the suburbs, bought an Oculus, locked the door, right? And was playing Fortnite and looking at Zoom and Oculus and Fortnite, saying, how are we gonna come out of COVID with an XR modality? And when the NFT movement started picking up, I saw all this energy, all the creators coming in and saying, how do I do this? And they're talking about it on Clubhouse. And people started, selling incredible dollar amounts, right? $69 for Beeple and $11.7 million for Blau. And I looked at it, and I felt like it was back to 1993 in the internet. It was just a flat website and a digital ham radio network called Clubhouse, and people were selling things. And so what it struck me is that we have this thing called XR and VR that's been lying in wait for this moment to arrive. And there's a lot of great things that happen in this industry, but this moment in particular could be the chance to gather all these creators that are approaching this NFT movement and allow them, empower them to tell their stories, right? We're a storytelling species. We're driven by narratives. We remember history because of stories. And so what if we could take these creators and use VR as a place to tell stories? Not to go hide in VR, not to build another MMO, but to actually use VR as the broadcast mechanism, where people can have magnificent worlds that represent their culture, represent their heritage, represent their stories. And so we started the company, and a couple weeks later, we invited the Korean NFT community, 600 people, to come in, and we built a cyberpunk-themed world in 2 days, and we had 88 Korean artists presenting in here. 500 people came into VR that night, and we live streamed it to the world. A couple weeks later, we had an artist named Imogen Heap, who's a multi-Grammy winner, and we built Imogen Heap World in a day, and she was performing live from the UK in front of a green screen with 500 people, again, listening to her performance. And then we kept going. We raised some capital from sovereign wealth funds, from tech investors, NFT collectors, and we started bringing their communities in here. So my objective is to take the art off the walls that's hidden in some rich person's house and bring it into the metaverse. My objective is to create a space for education and enlightenment. We're now bringing in fashion, dance, the space community, so on and so forth. You mentioned Tony Robbins. In August, I met Tony Robbins, and 3 weeks later, he was an investor, advisor, and we launched at his Business Mastery event 5 worlds. And his top customers, the people who pay $100,000 a year to be personally coached by Tony Robbins, were able to come in and experience his event, not on Zoom, but together in VR. And so what we're seeing over and over with this is and you do LBE, right? This past week, we had in Busan City in Korea, we had a conference there where 500,000 people came through and experienced a booth where they could see the metaverse. So there's this thing happening where the metaverse as a storytelling platform is connecting to people. It's bringing people out of COVID, out of the social dilemma, and into the future. And it's awesome. Like I told my team I want 1 million creators activated by the end of next year. How do we do that? It's by empowering people to tell stories and seeing that it's not just about being in a headset, but it's about using VR as a soundstage, as a platform for storytelling.
Right. And Will, I believe that you provided a video. Do you want
Yeah,
to show the video?
I would
at
love
this
to
time?
because I think we have a vision of the metaverse that is as I've been describing is inclusive. So it's a 2-minute video. If you'd be willing to show it, that'd be wonderful.
Okay. Yeah. Can we roll the video, Carlos?
What is the metaverse? How will we know when it has arrived? The metaverse is already here, and it's expanding like a living ecosystem. Virtual reality, augmented reality, Web 3.0, NFTs. The metaverse is simply a layer above humanity that will encompass all of our digital lives. In the NFT Oasis, you can already experience vast worlds and infinite possibilities, where the only limit is your imagination. Experience music in environments that were previously impossible, and immerse yourself in art like never before. Social VR allows you to transcend everyday reality, but remain emotionally connected. You can take flight, free yourself from limitations, but retain your humanity. Here, where you can push your creativity to the furthest reaches of the universe. The NFT Oasis is built on economics of abundance, where creators are compensated fairly and honored for their contributions. NFTs are the economic engine of the metaverse, providing new ways for creators, world builders, and freelancers to earn a living. Everyone will need a home in the metaverse, your digital space for your digital self, where you can express yourself with collections and creations. Owners of the Genesis Penthouse will be founding architects of the metaverse, with a front row seat to private events. Future NFT drops will incentivize the community to build the metaverse together, and the ecosystem will grow abundantly. We're standing at the edge of the unknown, a quantum field of infinite potential. NFT Oasis is your key to a future that is limitless.
And I want to hand the mic back to my esteemed colleagues here, but I just to capture this, that's all live. That all exists, and people who come to NFT Oasis can claim one of those free worlds and start their journey of storytelling. And they can hire designers or freelancers from our marketplace and start to build out, and then they can tell their stories and live stream out. So we're about building community, finding these new mechanisms for the creator economy, piloting them, and then educating everybody on how to make a living and move away from the ad economy, move away from student debt and working at Starbucks and becoming a creator at an early age and finding your passion.
It's amazing. And are you a musician or are you an artist yourself?
I'm a musician. That was me playing.
Motivated you?
That was me playing piano in there, and I've been a burner. I'm a supporter of the arts, and I think that it's just really important to help the artists and musicians figure out a better model, right? The exploitative, predatory economy with the labels and the art galleries, it's time for that to say thank you for your service and move on, and now we're going to build something better.
Very nice. Thank you. So Amy, I remember, well, what people didn't realize that know us in the VR community, AR community, is that Amy and I knew each other back when we were doing music videos and commercials way back in the day. And so we reconnected in the VR, AR space. And I think your first position was with Leap Motion, was that right?
Yeah.
But you immediately started to apply Leap Motion's technology towards enterprise. I mean, you were so ahead of the curve as far as acknowledging enterprise as really the main backbone that would really help to propel us forward. So can you tell us a little bit about your time in enterprise and what you're doing with different companies in the space?
Yeah, so Leap Motion, I don't know if you're developers, you know Leap Motion. It looked like a tiny iPhone. It was a little USB peripheral. And it was meant to be kind of your third input. You know, it really allowed you, it had low latency hand tracking. It allowed you to control 3D objects on your 2D screen, because we hadn't quite gotten away from that yet. And I was brought in by the VCs because they thought, maybe there's like an application for this for enterprise. And it coincided with the launch of the first DK1, and it's why I see in this picture there's like that little holder. By the way, that holder was invented like 2 years after, because we used to duct tape it to the front of the DK1. Like super high tech. And
Duct tape's high tech.
it is high tech. I duct tape all kinds of stuff to other stuff. But we always joke that everyone remembers their first time in VR. So I go in, and we've got this this Leap Motion duct tape to the front of the Oculus, and there was these great developers called Chaotic Moon, and they had done this experience called Shark Punch, exactly as it sounds. And by the way, if you are accosted by a shark in the water, that is what you're supposed to do, is punch them in the nose. Fun fact. So here I was like flailing in the middle of the office, and I just thought, this changes everything, because not only was I interacting with 3D objects in a 3D space, but then I had this natural hand tracking. And so, with some of and we were working with enterprise clients really across all verticals, but that focus was still very much for Leap Motion on kind of games and consumer. So after about 2 years, I said, look, I kind of want to spin out and do my own thing. And they were like, great, no problem. And actually, it's funny, I met the Ultraleap guys last night. So they've gone on to do other great things. But I've spent my career now, and it's not just about enterprise and making enterprise better, but watching NFT Oasis, don't you feel like strangely calm after that? Like, it is this incredible landscape. So we have the kind of commercial element, and we can improve process. And so there has to be, a practical commercial element to the metaverse. But this creativity piece and storytelling, I was just whispering to Will while that was going on, saying, yeah, automation is a little bit scary and people will be displaced, but that is what we were put on this planet to do. We're all creators. We're all storytellers. I've been telling stories to my parents since I was very small. I still do it. My kids do it to me now. But like this notion of creation and being able to make a living now, it's remarkable, and it's a huge opportunity.
That's great. And when was that? What year was that? When you were working
So
with
I
Leap Motion?
started with Leap Motion in 2013. So it's like people say I'm OG, but like I'm OG light. Like Tom Furness built like the first flight sim back in the 70s, right? So that's OG. Jackie Mori,
Right.
Tony Parisi, who you mentioned, Nani De La Pena, who invented immersive journalism.
Right.
And who did we just run into out in Philip Rosedale from Second Life,
Right, Second
who's been
Life.
thinking about these immersive worlds and blockchain and crypto, for years, more than, almost 2 decades.
Yeah, and without these other iterations, we wouldn't have an NFT Oasis. We wouldn't have the technology being driven forward. I mean, even with Oculus Quest, when Oculus Quest came out, that was a game changer. People would ask me all the time, they would say, what do you think is going to accelerate virtual reality? What's going to accelerate the metaverse? And I said, well, there's this new headset that hasn't been released yet, but apparently it's not going to be connected to a PC computer, so untethered, lightweight, and I think under $1,000. Comes out at what, $299, $399 respectively. And that's when it started to be on. And I looked at the recent numbers, and they're up to 8 million units that are out there. So that headset was a big attributor to this acceleration, and why NFT Oasis is now populated with a lot of people because a lot more people have the headset. And speaking of headsets, I want to segue over to Lisa with Magic Leap. And Magic Leap just did another raise of 500 million. And we knew Magic Leap when they first entered the scene, which was just floored all of us. We were just all really encouraged about what Magic Leap can do, and it went through a little bit of a pivot. But I'd love for you to talk about what Magic Leap is up to now. Actually, what you're involved with, what Magic Leap is doing now, and how this device is working with enterprise and with business applications.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd like to take a step back about 2.5, 3 decades, right? I was at Intel starting in 1993, and when we take a look from a technological perspective, we all stand on the shoulders of giants, right? And I was one of the first webmasters at Intel, like way back in the day. We had Mosaic 0.93. Nobody else was teaching HTML coding classes, and here we are at lunchtime, and the IT department is like, what's happening in there? What is happening? What are we doing? Like, why are people using IRQ? It's all of these sorts of things, right? But we've all persisted over time, and I think, that experience at Intel really taught me that, we talk about Moore's Law, right? This idea that technology, transistors, get smaller and smaller and more powerful over time. I don't know if you guys know, but Moore's Law is actually a financial model, actually not a tech model. But it was about the cost of compute and power. How as that got more powerful, the cost would go down, and we're seeing this. So Greg's just talking about Oculus Quest being $299, $399. Well, those sorts of technological advances from a power and cost perspective would not be possible if it were not for this inertia of all of these technology companies and the brilliance of guys like at Intel and these other companies continuing to drive and push the envelopes. So what you're able to do today on smaller devices, I've got my phone in my pocket, right? The compute here is off the back of people driving for that next level of form factor that is more powerful, more mobile, better battery life, better compute, better graphics. All of those things bring us to this point in time where now the handcuffs are now off. So those of us who've been driving client compute, server client compute for a long time, we were doing wearable computing in the factories in the 90s. Well, now with Magic Leap, right, you really now have this taking of this 2D environment and now true wearable computing, right, where you're taking your 2D environment, moving it into that 3D environment, and creating a device that now functions as an extension to you in the real world. And now in the aggregation of the content, the space, the context, the metaverse, all of those things come together now to provide that extension that wouldn't heretofore been possible. And I think that's what drives Magic Leap at its core, that real true next evolution of spatial computing, the things that extend us. We talked about storytelling. Well, now you're really capturing those stories and you're sharing those stories, and everyone's, in the pivot to enterprise is because how much time do you all spend at work? Most of your days, right? So how do we extend that? How do we make you more powerful? How do we give you those, put on somebody else's brain? Like Amy records something, she makes that available, then I can put on her brain and I'll continue and add on to that, right? So the creator community is always, I'm an artist and a musician myself. My son's a composer. I've got a great, great love for the community of artists and storytelling, but we're all storytelling in our jobs, in our daily lives, and this is really the core of what we're trying to drive, bringing that connectivity of people and environments, space and time, and really extending it in a powerful way that was not available to us before. And I think we're just at that point of where, as you said, technology has now come together with people, and it's going to unlock potential like we've never seen before.
I love it. And so last night I spoke to a class at LMU, and it was a writing and immersive media. And the students had asked me, so how do I get into immersive media, or how do I stay up on the latest technologies, and what companies should I be paying attention to? And my response was, and maybe some of you in the audience are thinking the same thing, like, hey, I'm hearing all this buzz about VR and hearing all this buzz about the metaverse, but what's real, and how do I get in? And a lot of people are thinking that the train has already left the station, and don't ever think that. Like, it's so new that all of you are in at the perfect time. The fact that you're even here listening to, you know, my esteemed friends and colleagues is a step in the right direction, or being at a conference of like AWE. But I briefly wanted to just say that, again, as Will and I said, it takes a village. And look at all these different blogs, you know, TechCrunch and Wired and Fast Company and what else? You know, even the media rags like Hollywood Reporter and Deadline, like everything's converging right now. And look at the Magic Leap articles or other head-mounted displays like the Quest. I mean, I was in Cardboard. I was with Google Cardboard when it first came out, because I felt that it was magical enough to at least get people in that spatial environment. Look at the software companies like Unity, Unreal Engine, Blender. Look at the hardware companies like Metastage. My friend's company, Christina Heller, they're doing volumetric capture so that you can have your avatars, you can have your personas put into these virtual spaces. And then, you know, everything else, like how you said, we're on the shoulders of giants. You know, the Second Lives, and what were the companies that were really making a really good go out of it, go at it, and they were getting us acclimated into being in that space. And some have made it, some have not, but you can't fault these companies because they're all contributing. And again, many of you out in the audience are going to be able to contribute in your little way that's going to work and help us all get to the metaverse. So going back to the business part, what I love about NFT Oasis and Magic Leap, you know, hearing about the $500 million in new funding, hearing about the $4.4 million raise that you did in 2 months, and your activation with Tony Robbins, very well-known speaker. And then, sure, a lot of you have heard about like Rec Room, you know, the $2.5 billion valuation, or how many people are spending a lot of money on virtual goods. You have the Quest, as I mentioned before, selling 8 million units. Nike filed just this week for a virtual goods trademark. Match, which owns companies, a Match Group that owns companies like Tinder, now they're doing virtual goods and currency in the space. So all these are very valid examples of business applications. And again, as I started this talk, this panel, it was about how these business applications, and I know it seems like scattershot because there's all these different applications, all these different types of companies, from NFT Oasis to Nike shoes to a dating site, you know, but they're all trying things to hopefully all coalesce. You know, they're all hopefully going to find a standard that would be the standard for buying virtual goods, for e-commerce, for the creator economy. So the next question that I had was, as you're working in these different activations, like I want to start with you, Will. It's like, what have you learned? Like anything in these you know, short few months that you've been doing these big projects, have you learned something that you feel are going to attribute to the future? Anything you know, exciting and optimistic about some discoveries?
Yeah, well, I remember back in 2009, I was one of the first people to build a virtual currency monetization business on Facebook gaming. Facebook launched its platform. I looked over at what Tencent was doing and kind of copied that model. And my first customers were like Zynga, Playdom, Playfish, Kabam, right? And started figuring out how to do that. And now we think about virtual currency and virtual goods as commonplace. In 2012, I read the Bitcoin white paper. I started a company in 2013 in Bitcoin and building Bitcoin custody. And now we think about cryptocurrency and DeFi and everything. So your point about being early is right on. And so rather than worrying about the solving the business model, it's about getting to the core of what moves us as humans, right? And where is the scarcity of the human quotient in an ecosystem? It's typically in the developers and designers, and it's in the creators, right? And so if you can harness that energy, if you can really bring those kind of communities in and delight them, and then have them telling the stories to the market and have them participating through your technology or through your services, you're going to find the business models. But I've been taking pages from the crypto and from now NFTs and saying, how do I look at XR, VR, metaverse as a place to play, as a place to tell stories, but apply these new models. Because having been in the video games industry at Big Fish, we were a publisher, and large publishers like Epic, and large marketplaces like Apple, they control, right? They have control. And then you have indie games and everything else, and you have indie service providers and small service providers. So I think now with this Web3 and this kind of crypto evolution, new and more models are going to emerge that are going to accelerate the growth and the potential in XR and VR, which is exciting. So, that's what I've been looking at. And the telling points for me are when I can activate somebody. For example, we had an artist in Ghana who couldn't afford a computer. She was just painting on her iPhone. She spent her last money to mint an NFT. She came into one of our art walks, got exposure, and now week after week she's selling thousands of dollars of NFTs as an artist. And like that's at a micro level. Tony Robbins at a larger level. But there's this opportunity to harness this technology, move away from it just being technology in search of a solution, and have it be more about the human connection.
I love that. And Lisa, you've been in the cloud space for a long time, well before many of us even thought of the cloud. And I'm sure that with your connection with Magic Leap's partnership with, say, AMD and what was the other company, VMware. So how are these partnerships propelling Magic Leap into the future, and how do you see that developing, hopefully, towards the metaverse?
I mean, I think at the most fundamental aspect of it is about when you're a technology company, it's about making sure that you're taking care of your ecosystem, right? And you're really maximizing the opportunity for people on your platform. I think we get very much augured in on like who's going to be the startup, who's going to be the next unicorn, and we tend to forget our past. We tend to forget what's already in hand for us to enable, right? So I mean, moving to those standards that we've been talking about, the AMD with the x86 architecture, right? With VMware supporting it in a standard enterprise environment. We're just taking the manacles off of what we're trying to do, and the key thing here, guys, is sometimes the next thing is the simple thing. It's the next step right in front of you. We talk about 2D visualization, big data, a lot of happening in AI and machine learning. All these things start to come together to actually humanize data and humanize information in such a way that now we can start to do something. Do you know how much data is unused? Like 86% of data is unused at any given time, right? So if we start to bring those things together and we start to apply them, data is all kinds of things. It's location, it's algorithms based on, say COVID data or whatever those things might be. If we start to bring all those things together, we can extend applications that are already there, people that are already doing these basic things. Maybe we just need to take the next step. So I think and sometimes we're going to have brand new inventions, but I think there's not one ring to rule them all. We have to enable the entire ecosystem. We have to not be like throwing the baby out with the bathwater all the time, just starting new because we think it's going to be the next big thing. We don't, it's versus the gambler's mentality. We need to be smart about it. We need to extend what we have. And that's the extension of people, that's the extension of data, that's the extension of information, and it's the enabling, right? There's a lot here, guys. We really need to float all boats. This theory of abundance. It's more that we can think about what we're doing, how we can extend that to spatial, how we can extend that to AR, how we can extend that to VR, so it's a cohesive mix from the real world to the digital world and back down again. That's when the metaverse actually comes to life. So we need to be thinking about that as tech companies all up. How do we enable that? How do we make our platforms easy to work with? How do we make it natural to extend the person and what we're doing into these solutions? I think that's going to be key. We're not just picking up our box of rocks and moving it to a new location. This is the environment that we live in. How are we going to connect that from my feet on the floor to the metaverse and back? That's, and all of the things that already exist. These are all important elements. We're already in the metaverse, as some people have said. It's already here. It's already connected. We've been here for a long time. Now we just have the opportunity to visualize that in 3D, visualize that in immersive, and then take that to the next level. So the key thing is enabling those creators at that edge to bring that stuff to life.
Yeah, well said. And the really great point that Lisa had made is that it's here. Let's build on top of it. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. And I feel that that's lends itself back to what Tony Parisi was saying, is that the metaverse is the internet. It's there. We're building on top of it. Obviously, it's got to become more robust to handle these 3D objects and more throughput. But for all of you that are developers, that are entrepreneurs, just understand that you have a lot of platforms that are out there to your access. You have Unity that's free. You have AltSpace, which NFT Oasis is built on right now. And a lot of people will probably question, well, why don't you just build your own platform and build your own world? Well, why? There's a company like Microsoft that has put in the time, that have the cloud, their cloud backing it, their program is supporting it, and it works. So use what's available right now, and I think that you're gonna save yourself a lot of time and effort, and hopefully get out to the marketplace and start having a go at it and make money. So and Amy, I mean, you're traveling the world. Every time I talk to you, you're in another location in this world, and you consult for so many different companies. Can you talk about maybe a notable company that you've been working with that you feel is really exciting right now for you, and could be lending itself towards where we're all trying to go?
I'm never allowed to say names of companies.
Right.
However, one of the things that we're seeing and that we're promoting is also leveraging this. You heard all of us up here talking about the user experience and what the opportunity is for communication. And there's also an emerging value system and an emerging kind of direct to consumer, direct to avatar, but it's sort of a misnomer, because there is an opportunity for brands to have a one-to-one, completely transparent relationship with their customers. And for us to have, you talk about 86% of data, we need to take our data back. So any of you out there who are builders, help build the interface that allows us to control our data, to have our avatars are going to be our digital representatives in the space, and we'll have our public persona and our private persona. But we can set up a mechanism where that private persona is queried, and that we can actually allow data. Like, it doesn't need to be harvested in the background, right? This can just be a completely transparent system. And we start to see all of these pieces are coming together. So again, it's really about rethinking how a brand in particular, and I do have a particular client in mind who's thinking about this, and they just want to say, look, what gives you value? Here's what data we need from you, and then what do you want from us? And that's going to be really, really interesting as it evolves. And this isn't just about putting a stake in the ground and going, look, we're here, we're in the metaverse, and pushing out brand-related NFTs. It's much bigger than that. It's about communication. So that's what I can say.
So we have only a few minutes left. Wanted to know if there are any questions from anyone, any of you in the audience. Any questions for our panelists?
Someone down here?
Front row.
Oh, yeah. Here, do you want to actually walk up to the mic? Thank you.
So do you guys think that having open and trustworthy financial markets is essential for Metaverse? And when I say financial markets in this context, I mean in the future being able to put down an NFT as collateral on a loan, extend and take out credit, futures contracts on events in the Metaverse. Like, do you think having that sort of interactive ownership economy to the fullest extent is what will truly enable this to take off in the future?
It's a great question. Will, I
Yeah.
think you're most suited to, best
Answer
suited
this,
to
yeah,
answer
right.
this.
Sounds like I've been there for a little bit. Yeah, 100%. And I think what's really interesting is the interplay between DeFi, NFTs, and Metaverse as it emerges, and also I'd say AR. So I predict that the NFTs you're buying today are going to be the things that power the AR future, right? So when we walk into a room, and your NFTs are going to be showing up in our contact lenses on the walls, empowering the audio and everything else. So absolutely, there's this interplay, and it I think to some people, to outsiders, crypto and blockchain kind of looks toyish, looks silly, looks scammy, but it's just the same kind of experimental that Lisa was talking about that happened 30 years ago to get us to today's VR, right? People needed to play with toys to get somewhere. So the toys now are financial mechanisms that are going to mature, that are going to intervene. And I think it's absolutely important. To my point before about publisher control within the gaming ecosystem, the metaverse and the open metaverse and open protocols and open finance are going to allow a lot more participants in the global economy of that, which I think is critical. And it's not going to come from the top down. It's not going to come from a company or a government. It needs to be opened up. So I'm very bullish on that trend.
Thank you.
It's a great question.
Thank you. And one more question? Yeah, come on up.
Hey, my name is Steve. I have a question about Metaverse and NFT. Especially nowadays, we have most NFTs in 2D JPEG format. It sounds like a 3D adoption hasn't taken off yet. Why do you think that? Is that because we don't have the use case, or because we're being blocked by something else?
So I think the 2D NFTs, the JPEGs are in many cases, cash grab and a copycat mechanism. But where we're heading, my company, is we're using NFTs as access keys to the metaverse. So what you saw in that video is you saw these penthouses. We're selling right now 111 NFTs, which are an access key to use the penthouse. If you remember when Salesforce launched, they had that no smoking sign, the word software in it, and they moved from CRM download software to SaaS. So we're moving to MaaS, Metaverse as a Service. And we're launching a marketplace of designers and freelancers that can submit their work, whether it's freelance work or designs or design time, as NFTs. So now as a creator, I can go buy NFTs and I can assemble those together as the way I build the metaverse. So I see the NFTs as the engine for the metaverse, and that's novel. People haven't really figured that part out yet. We will move to 2D to 3D and so on, but right now the crypto, as they call themselves, the degenerate community, is so immediate that they're buying these 2D JPEGs. Bored Ape Yacht Club is about community. They're using this there. It's going to evolve, and I'm keen on. My intention with NFT Oasis is I'm building a layer underneath called the provenance standard. And I want to see every other metaverse compete with the NFT Oasis and use the provenance standard, which is going to drive the metaverse forward by using NFTs as the engine. So that's why we're the Oasis, because a lot of mirages leading up to that. I think when we get there, when metaverses start to see NFTs as that engine of ownership and that mechanism for collaboration, you mentioned loans, collateral loans, all these kind of things, then that's when, and we're seeing the early parts of it, that's when the quality, the high level quality of 3D and immersive will come into play.
Well, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Oh.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
Is this on? You go. Okay, great. It's me, the track chair. I actually have a question for you guys. Great crew over here. Will, Amy, Greg, thank you all so much. Lisa, I have a question for you. I was an early fan of Magic Leap. I still have my ML1 at home, and I love Spotify on it. I still play that with my fancy Magic Leap headphones. I think Dr. Gordbort was the best AR game ever made. I don't know if you guys, if anybody else here. Okay,
I actually
Rachel?
still play that.
It is incredible.
Really fun, and the plane recognition, as
Yes.
simple as it is, but it's so good.
Simple and somewhat repetitive, but it was
fun,
a
though.
great game. One of the most amazing things ever come out of Magic Leap besides that was an experience called The Last Light.
I haven't seen that one.
It was like you guys know? Cool. I urge everybody to check it out. It's like, it's a story about a little girl that is going back to visit go back to her grandma's house who died. It's an emotional experience. It's beautiful. It has an incredible sound design and it's just lovely. So my question for you, will magically return to making consumer experiences, perhaps like Dr. G or like The Last Light?
Magic Loop's priority is really to be able to fire the developer community. And I think, we've made that very strong pivot to enterprise first and developers first that you'll see as we get into the next device that we've just announced. Where it goes from there, it's anyone's guess. The whole point of trying to really make sure that we're providing the tools and the environments to developers so that they can start to bring those solutions to the market. We can't waver from that. And we understand very clearly that businesses are the foundational element of bringing these great technologies to life. So, it's anybody's guess as far as what the developer community will lean in with as far as how the device gets used over time. But I would say we won't be returning to first-party content like that anytime soon. But the future's bright.
But you bring
Thank
up
you.
you bring up a great point, which is there's a reason that like Steve Ballmer lost his mind on stage, like developers, because they're also the kind of original creators, and they're the ones that put these experiences in front of us. And when you start to think about the confluence of all of these technologies, eventually they're going to want to go back to their roots. I mean, we work with almost every single one of our development teams that we work with came out of games, right?
Right, and that's the other thing that I was going to say. I mean, almost every company that we interact with, their teams inside are all coming from the game development marketplace, right? So companies, there is definitely a competition in the marketplace for if you're coming from a game studio, you have game development background. Serious games is serious business. And so I think as we cut our teeth on more serious games as an industry, it's always great to have the flash and dash of Hollowgate and et cetera, right? That really pushes the envelope. But when the rubber meets the road and we can really do serious games well, that's when things are going to get super interesting. And then I think it's just going to continue to push the technology forward.
Cool, very exciting. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? And okay, if we don't have any questions, I guess I'll end with another Tony Parisi final thought.
He's not even here, and he's getting like.
I know.
He's
What is
stealing all of our
happening?
thunder.
What is happening?
I'm sorry. So from his manifesto, he said, "The metaverse is the next evolution of the internet. Keep it simple, stay focused on the goal, and the metaverse of our dreams will become reality." So, but thank you all for being here and being such amazing crowd, and thank you all to the panelists. So, and enjoy the rest of your time at AWE.